To have you all here, and it's a real privilege, personal privilege for me, and also for CSIS that we can welcome Minister Kono Taro. He's been a great friend. He's been here at CSIS in numerous responsibilities. He was, of course, the defense minister. He was the foreign minister. We were privileged to have his voice here at that time, and now we have the opportunity to have him here as the Minister of Digital Transformation. But before I say anything, I think I just heard that you just celebrated your 60th birthday. Let's all give him a round of applause. I honestly, he could pass for being a grad student at Georgetown again, I mean, he looks just no different than that. You've held up a lot better than I have through the passing of years. Congratulations, but also congratulations on this assignment. I was talking with my colleagues. I can't imagine a more complicated job to have than to be the Minister of Digital Transformation for a country, because what you've got to do is to get all of these powerful stovepipes in government and society, and now you're going to have to cut across all of that and find solutions for people and change the way they do business. There's nothing more challenging than this opportunity, but that's the reason that they chose a man of this talent, this background, his experience. Kono Taro is well known to all of us because he's been familiar in Washington. We haven't known this dimension of his leadership. He's also been on the cutting edge of understanding technology and how it changes societies. So there's a reason he was selected for this job, and we're very, very fortunate to have his voice with us this afternoon. So would you, with your enthusiastic applause, welcome to the dais, Minister Taro Kono. Kono Taro.
So, good afternoon. Thank you very much for taking your time to come see me here. Well, it's a busy week in Washington, D.C. The Prime Minister is coming soon, and we have Foreign Minister and Defense Minister in the town. But if you see me, you see them all, so don't worry about it. I just came from Brussels yesterday. It became my longest birthday in my history. It was more than 30 hours, and I got 4 birthday cakes. And it was kind of nice, so maybe I should make a trip every year on January 10th. Well, it's good to be back in Washington, D.C., except Georgetown's basketball is not doing too well. I was quite disappointed. I came back as a minister for digital transformation. And I don't know, digital transformation seemed to be a very strange topic to talk about at this CSIS. You might wonder if I got lost my way to Silicon Valley or something. But I guess digital transformation has become a very critical topic on not just about technology, but concerns national competitiveness and national security or human well-being even. I have been a proponent of digital transformation or digital technology for many years. After I graduated from Georgetown, I joined a company called Fuji Xerox. And I was working in Akasaka, Tokyo, in their headquarters. And one day, I was assigned to translation work. So I could translate from anywhere. I thought I don't have to commute into Tokyo from my hometown. So I said if I could work from home, and they said yes. They connected a computer from my home to the head office, and I became the first teleworker in Fuji Xerox then. But the problem was my mother. I told her that I'm teleworking from home, but she kept telling her friend that I was sent home on paid leave. I think it was a very new concept to telework back in 80s, I guess. So let me talk about digital transformation and how important it is for society and the economy. In the past, trade involved the exchange of goods and services, but today, thanks to the growth in the knowledge economy, the physical and the cyber worlds have come together. And what we are increasingly sending back and forth across the border is not just the goods and service, but data as well. So digital trade is producing new business model in which data collected at factories, shops, online is analyzed by artificial intelligence to create a new value. Digital innovation is changing everything from taxis to Uber and pizza parlors, thanks to things like AI-assisted predictive ordering, delivery, or preparation. Even in manufacturing, all manner of processes can now be performed virtually with physical component downloaded and 3D printed as needed. So new innovations are also changing the internet. They are creating new frontiers like Web3 and the metaverse. They're enabling new forms of human organization through networks that are more decentralized and autonomous than traditional companies and government. In short, major paradigm shift is taking place. And how then should we in the government respond to this new world? It's this question, I think it's critical, and Washington, in a sense, would be a good venue to talk about that. In 2019, Japan proposed a concept called Data Free Flow with Trust, or DFFT. The idea was to encourage value-creating exchanges of data across borders by creating mechanisms to strengthen security, authentication, and other pillars of trust. DFFT has made important advances, but unfortunately, there's another trend, one towards digital protectionism. Some countries, many of them authoritarian, are moving to force technology businesses to store data domestically or disclose their source code to the government. The originally united world of the internet is now fragmented with differing national rules producing what some call the splinternet. What I feel is the most critical issue right now is the emergence of troublesome cyber players from rogue nations and the destruction of internet governance by certain states of concern. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is an example. Cyber attacks took place before the physical invasion. We have seen state-sponsored fake news and disinformation and attacks on the telecommunications infrastructure. Because of the cloud computing and AI, unlimited offensive capability can be obtained for just a few dollars. Cyber resilience and online safety are more important than ever. And this is true not only in extreme circumstances such as war. To achieve the trust-based data flows envisioned by DFFT, we must ensure privacy and security and transparent and trustworthy rules for government access to information. Countering disinformation such as fake news is an important issue everywhere. The question now is how to promote the digitalization of society in a holistic and reliable way to reverse the fragmentation and chaos of the larger digital world. We live in an era in which countries' power is determined by the way they harness digital technology. Structural changes like the fourth industrial revolution and a crisis like the pandemic and the climate change only amplify this dynamic. In Japan, we created a new digital agency in 2021 to oversee the digital transformation of the government. We were motivated in part by Japan's own experiences. In the analog technology, Japan was at the forefront of the world. But truth is that the pandemic, the COVID, exposed how far we have fallen behind in deployment of digital technology in the society. For instance, I was minister in charge of the vaccine rollout last year, 2 years ago. The health ministry were trying to count the paper to find out how many vaccine administered the day before. And I thought that's impossible. There was no online access to doctors. Information required to pandemic-related financial benefit to individual or business, it was collected by snail mail, and it slowed down everything. For some government procedures today, you're still required to submit application in floppy disk, yeah. So I had to declare war on floppy disk in Japan. And the BBC carried the news globally. I got many phone calls from my former foreign minister counterpart. Hey, can you buy floppy disk in Japan? How much are they? So digital agency was conceived as a response to this situation. It's a kind of command post to oversee Japan's catch-up on digitalization and to promote the digital transformation across society. It began operation in September 2021 after a preparation period of just 4 months. Our mission is human-friendly digitalization. No one should be left behind. Our vision is government as a service or government as a startup. The pandemic itself is also pushing society towards digitalization. Telework, cloud computing, and the transition to cashless payment have been steadily progressing. In addition, the government has launched an initiative which seeks to spread the benefit of digital transformation to municipalities, business, and individuals across Japan. Changing the central government in Tokyo is not enough. We are promoting smart cities around the country in cooperation with local governments, medical institutions, and others. We are currently focusing on 3 initiatives. The first is a government cloud. The digital agency has developed a government cloud as a common digital infrastructure. Its applications can be used by central ministry and local government. This will enable rapid information collaboration enhanced response to crisis, and increased operational efficiency for local government. The second initiative is to develop and expand the use of individual ID numbers. We call it My Number in Japan. And from May of this year, Android smartphones will be equipped with My Number function. People with My Number card, digital or real, will receive a variety of benefits. For example, people can use it as a health insurance card, a record of medical history and a prescription, and a driver's license. IDs can be integrated, and you don't need to carry multiple cards anymore. One smartphone allows you to access various government services. The third initiative is updating and modernizing analog era regulations to make them suitable for the digital age. To realize a society-wide digital transformation, about 10,000 laws and regulations made in the analog era will be overruled in the next 2 years. In addition, we are making technology maps, which will be created and made public to identify technologies that can be used to substitute analog technologies. This will enable workers in the field to search for digital alternative. For example, laws that require the inspection personnel be stationed at the work site or that visual checks be carried out in person are being changed to allow for inspection by remote cameras or drones. The basic idea is to take practical steps to make society more convenient with digital technology. It's no secret that Japan's population is shrinking. Depopulation means we need to find ways to use labor more efficiently through the use of AI and other technologies so that humans can work where they are most needed. I've been talking a lot about the data and technology, and the vision for the society that I'm describing is profoundly human-centered. It's this vision that I keep pushing forward. Japan holds G7 presidency this year, and I will host the digital ministers meeting in April. Currently, I'm visiting 6 countries in 12 days to spread the message ahead of this event, the trip that I hope will generate some excitement about some important issues. The G7 this year will discuss promotion of trust, including the challenge of fake news and disinformation, or internet resilience, emerging technologies to promote innovation, and human-centered AI implementation. But the most important is DFFT, the data free flow with trust. I believe that the world will be more convenient and prosperous if trustworthy data flows freely while security, privacy, and intellectual property are protected. The benefits can be seen in some areas already. Manufacturers can now obtain real-time data on the operational status of IoT devices sold in different countries and provide maintenance services, such as fault prediction. This is an area where barriers to data transfer are relatively low because it's mostly non-personal information. Other areas are more complicated, such as autonomous driving, for example. In Japan and other countries with labor shortages, autonomous vehicles are expected to play an important role in public transportation. But the AI algorithms that control self-driving vehicle must be refined through the constant collection of large amount of driving and location data. smart and transparent rulemaking is crucial in this field. But meanwhile, in China, their data localization regulations are making it increasingly difficult to transfer data overseas. That is an obstacle to innovation, since until recently, China had served as a huge technology demonstration site for companies from around the world. Now is the time to accelerate efforts to promote cross-border data flows among like-minded countries under the banner of DFFT. DFFT was endorsed at the G20 Osaka Summit in 2019. Former Prime Minister Abe, former President Trump, and President Xi Jinping sat around the same table, and the heads of state and government agreed to the concept. Over the past 2 years, roadmaps and action plans have been presented at the G7 in the UK and Germany, and discussions on DFFT have progressed. As chair, I will carry on and lead a discussion to produce concrete results. That don't mean every country will have the exact same rules. Even among G7, the United States places more emphasis on data-free flow, and Europe places more on privacy protection. We know each country has its own view and policies on data. But cooperation to ensure interoperability and transparency among the national systems is possible. We had a good news on this front last year. The United States and the EU announced an agreement in principle for a new data privacy framework, and OECD published its declaration on government access to personal data. I'm greatly encouraged by these developments as I try to help build a bridge across our divided digital world and alleviate the splinter net crisis. Privacy is an ever-present concern, but emerging technologies could help address the issue. These innovations like PETs, or privacy-enhancing technologies, and RegTech, meaning regulatory processes that are carried out through technology. PETs enable the use of personal information in data analysis and in machine learning, and so on, while protecting privacy. They use technologies such as differential privacy, which adds noise to data to make it difficult to identify individual, and secure computing, which allows data to be processed in encrypted form. This way, data can be used in a manner that is compliant with regulations and ensures privacy. To operationalize DFFT, we would like to promote the collaboration with companies and universities to develop and deploy important technologies. Japan would like to take opportunity of the G7 to agree to accelerate institutional cooperation and technological responses to DFFT and to propose an international framework for public-private partnership that will serve as the core of this effort. As a political leader, I am firmly committed to policies that ensure the legitimacy or legitimate handling of data from the perspective of security, privacy, and intellectual property protection, and that ensure the authenticity of data itself. In addition, while respecting the diversity of data governance practices in each country, I would like to establish an organization that may be called Institutional Arrangement for Partnership, in which policy experts, companies, universities, and other entities with real knowledge and experience can develop and implement specific projects that will turn DFFT into reality. The Japanese government would like to obtain the endorsement and participation of the G7 government, as well as public and private entities from the like-minded countries in the establishment of this organization. As one concrete example of the project for this organization, I would like to suggest that we first establish an international base registry of regulations on cross-border data transfer and data localization. Currently, there are complex and overlapping regulations on data in various countries. And to make matters worse, regulations on data change very frequently. A base registry of regulations will provide a basis for countries to improve their own systems or promote mutual compatibility of the systems, and would increase legal transparency and the stability for industry in each jurisdiction. From working at home in Fuji Xerox to my former role as Ministry of Regulatory Reform and now as a Minister for Digital Transformation, I have always been looking for ways to bridge the digital and the physical world. This year, as the G7 chair, Japan wants to bring the public and private sectors together to make digital governance better. And we hope that by sharing our own experience with digital transformation, we can contribute to the development of a global digital society. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the discussion.
Please, Mr. Kono, again, welcome to CSIS, and thank you for a really comprehensive and fascinating speech. I am, for the audience, Chris Johnstone, the Senior Advisor in Japan Chair here at CSIS, and we'll have a brief conversation here, ask a few questions, and then we'll open up to our audience, both here in the room, and then hopefully, if we have time, some questions from our virtual audience as well. So I'd like to start maybe with a couple of questions about your efforts at home. Mm-hmm. You have a daunting mission to overcome tradition and culture when it comes to the digital age. And it does seem that there seems to be some resistance from Japanese firms, depending on the size. Obviously, companies that are more internationally focused are more receptive to your efforts. Others that are more focused at home, perhaps less so. What is your strategy for encouraging this digital transformation in the private sector, given the sort of mixed responses so far?
Yes, if you want to make changes, certainly someone would like to oppose to the idea. But if it's obvious, if it becomes obvious that it is more convenient, more productive, or more efficient, I think people will be happy to oblige. Like I got rid of hanko or name stamp. And at the beginning, I mean, people are like, wow, what are you trying to do? I mean, you have to have a hanko on the paper. But I guess now people are happy without it because, you know, oftentimes you forget to bring a hanko to the government office and your application will not be received. You have to come home and put it a hanko and go back again, and you don't have to do that. Or in the company, at the end of the year, you have to put so many hanko on so many paper, and now you don't have to do that. So it is obvious. It's more efficient, and nothing has been lost. So my strategy is to show small, early success. Moving on to digital will give you better, more convenient life. And then people will beginning to see. Now we are issuing a My Number card. People resisted at the beginning. Why should we? But now, at the end of last year, we issued 82 million cards, which is more than driver's license. So that is the largest number of the ID card that our government issues in Japan. And now people are beginning to use the card, and now they're appreciating it's quite convenient. So let us start out with small early success, and hopefully. And we need to teach how to use the smartphone. The senior people are, I think they never tried, but they say, well, I don't want to use it. But in some cities, actually, they are teaching senior people how to use smartphone. And they use that to communicate with their grandsons, granddaughters, taking photos, or chat with their friend. So, in order to spread the digital technology, you need analog teaching.
Small steps and build momentum. Makes sense. Let me ask you about Kasumi Gaseki. You spoke about your mother's confusion about your telework arrangement early on. You've said that work culture reform and promotion of telework in Kasumi Gaseki are a big part of your priorities, critical in order to bring in more government employees, improve workflow in these agencies. What's your progress in this area? What's been the response across ministries to this?
During the COVID, we kind of forced even people in the Kasumi Gaseki to telework. We were asking Keidanren to have only 30% of people coming into office. So we told all the ministry, let's have 30% working in office and 70% from home. Not many ministry reached that point. I think it's still a Kasumi Gaseki mentality. Plus, the relationship with the parliament. The parliament is sort of lagging even behind in digital technology. The people constantly have to go up to members' office to take questions for the committee. And parliament love to use fax machine. So you have to go into your office to receive the fax. So it's not just the Kasumi Gaseki, but I think we need to have parliament and Supreme Court. Supreme Court is even behind that. So I think we need to change this iron triangle from analog era to digital era.
A new iron triangle. Well, let's turn now to your international agenda and Japan's role as G7 chair. You spoke a bit about your priorities, and in particular, you described this IAP, Institutional Arrangement for Partnership, an initial idea of building a registry of data-related rules and regulations across participating countries. Do you see this as a possible deliverable at the G7 this year? And what else is on your agenda, your priorities for this space?
Well, I hope we could come up with a permanent body. There have been several dialogues on DFFT, but they are mostly ad hoc, one-time only dialogue. And I think we need a body with a permanent secretariat and to come up with some kind of concrete outcome. So we would like to set up a body, outcome-oriented body, and the Japanese government willing to fund at the beginning. If you look at the data world, Europe is quite tough on privacy with their GDPR. The United States is more like a Wild West in data field, and Japan sort of in the middle. And it would be difficult to make a complete convergence. But increased transparency is important and possible. Like Japan and EU, we are supposed to be on an equal footing. We recognize each other. But in reality, if a small business in Japan wanted to do something in Europe, they don't have enough resource to go into the bottom of the regulation on data. So they are not sure what is the up-to-date data regulation in their field. But by creating a international base registry. If you go there, you know what you have to do. And it will be beneficial mutually. And we also need to think about the global south. ASEAN, African country or other Middle East country, they wanted to do business in European market, US market, Japanese market, and they need to know what the data regulations are. If we don't do that, I mean, China is trying to expand the sphere of influence into the cyber world. So we need to present a good alternative to that.
Right. Yep. Coalition of like-minded countries. Okay, now I'd like to open up to questions from the floor. I'd ask that you, if you have a question, to please identify yourself before you ask it, and then to be brief. Maybe I'll start with my colleague, Matt Goodman, who does a lot of work on these DFFT issues.
Thanks. I thought I'd get the ball rolling. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Great speech. And I want to actually follow up directly on what Chris was just asking about DFFT. I mean, I totally agree that with your vision for... Not on. There we go. Now I'm on. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Great speech. Totally agree that the world needs clear, consistent, interoperable rules for this critical data world that is sort of based on trust, enables free flow. So DFFT is a great concept, and I think your idea of trying to operationalize it really makes sense. But as you just alluded to, there are different approaches or different stages of development of legislation and regulation and policy on these matters, and there's one outlier in that regard, which is the United States, because we don't have comprehensive federal privacy legislation. And the second problem with the United States, at least right now, is that we don't seem willing to engage in, kind of more formal discussions of rulemaking in trade generally, and specifically in digital and data trade. And so I wonder how you're going to bring the United States along given those kind of constraints, and what your strategy is going to be.
Thank you. Well, on my trip this time, I'm sort of meeting so-called digital ministers in each country. But here in DC, you don't have a digital minister. So I gotta go to Commerce, I gotta go to USTR, I gotta go to White House, and things like that. If US had participated in TPP, it would have been much, much easier. TPP was supposed to be a rule maker for Indo-Pacific. And we could coordinate among US, Japan, some ASEAN countries, and other, now even United Kingdom is trying to participate. So the best solution would be to have US back in TPP, but politically that is not feasible for near future. So that's something we would hope for. So the alternative would be IPEF. Hopefully, it should have some digital wing in it. Or APEC has developed CBPR, cross-border privacy rule, and that's going to be operational. So we should have some alternative, and we should talk bilaterally between government. And we definitely need to include not just Europe, but Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Korea, Singapore, and other like-minded countries as well. So we would like to create this international body so we can continue talking about DFFT and other related issues.
Great, thanks. Other questions from the room? How about right here, ma'am?
Okay, hi. Thank you so much, Minister, for sharing your vision with all of us. My name is Chitrali, and I am a current master's student at Georgetown University.
Oh.
And, okay, so I've been...
Good school.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I've been following the work of Digital Agency for last 1 year, ever since it was formed.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following the work of Digital Agency since it was formed. And I wanted to ask you that the mandate of that agency is pretty much recommendations in nature. So I wanted to know how exactly are you dealing with the discrepancies that come between an agency and the ministries? Because like the first step towards making all of these visions a reality is having that strong mandate for the agency. So do you think that mandate needs a revision? And if not, how exactly is the agency dealing with the ministries and recommending them about these changes?
Thank you. Digital Agency controlled all the budget that relate to anything to do with digital. So every ministry has to get okay from Digital Agency to develop their own system, or certain important system, Digital Agency itself will develop and offer the system to the ministry. And then we have authority to tell other ministry what to do. Some people say that's something you have but you don't use, it's like a nuclear option. I don't think it's a nuclear option at all. I think if I have to, I will use that every day. I haven't yet, but it's a good thing to have. And I guess every ministry now realize it is important to sort of follow the guidelines. We only have 800 people, and quite a few of them are part-time basis because we cannot afford to hire a good person at the government pay scale. So some people come in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and they have their own business to run, or they have other company to work for. So we say we have 800 people, but in reality, we have probably 700 or a little bit more. So we're not going to be able to do everything we wanted to do. So what I'm trying to give priority is to set up important system and maintain that. So we are supposed to be in charge of Web3 and all those policy issues as well. But for that part could wait. So some of the policy issue I put on the back burner. And if we get the more resource, I will take it up. So that's where we are right now.
Maybe I'll ask another question from me. It's about the intersection of your portfolio with the portfolio of the Economic Security Minister. And in particular, Japan's new national security strategy places a really heavy emphasis on strengthening cybersecurity, protecting critical infrastructure, strengthening the National Incident Response Center. As you proceed in your efforts on the digitalization side, can you describe the interaction with the security piece of this, which is, of course, also critical?
Yes. Japan is now seriously taking up this issue of economic security, and we have a minister for that. We don't really have like a security clearance system, so that's something we are seriously looking into, and in a couple of years I think we will establish that as well. So Digital Agency, we are in the front line to protect the government system. At the same time, we are also put some hand into cybersecurity policy. Like we are putting My Number function on smartphone. Okay, so are there any device we should exclude for that function, or what are the criteria for each device to be allowed to get the function on. So those policy issues, we need to make decisions. And things other than that, like a drone, and other things like 5G networks. So there are critical infrastructure, and some security issues are involved. We are part of a decision making.
That's great. Other questions from the floor? Let's go over here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Alex Malo. I'm a senior associate at the Asia Group. I wanted to ask your thoughts on health technology and further promotion, or the government's strategy on further promoting around the digitalization of health in Japan, kind of given how COVID showed that was an area that really needed for more advancement, including on telemedicine. I was just wondering if you have further comment on if you have strategies to push that forward.
Thank you. Because the Japanese society is Asian, we should be able to produce a very strong health-related industry. But right now, it's just a dream. I think it is more to do with regulation than the technology itself in Japan. How to collect data and how to use those personal health data is, I would say, unclear. And then if you are to introduce health-related device or software, the regulation is not clear yet. So it happens, some Japanese company introducing software in US, Europe, and other market, but not in Japan. Or some health-related devices are not upgraded in Japan because they were not sure. They need to go through the authority process for the software update or not. So in order to be on the safe side, they just don't upgrade the software in Japan. And so we need to clarify those regulations. And we should be able to invite all the global health company to come to Japan as a sort of a test bed for their product. And we should encourage the Japanese company to go into health-related technology. But we have not been able to do that, and we are trying to encourage it. So right now, the big issue is there are a lot of health data stored in the computer in the hospitals, but we cannot collect them and we cannot share them. So there are a lot of health data, and we can use them. We could use them to improve our health. Not able to do that. So we need to come up with standard, and we need to come up with some regulation to be able to use those data. So it's more rules and regulation than the technology itself.
Challenge many of us have faced. Let's just do one more question, if I could. Okay, we'll go back here, sir.
Thank you very much, Minister Kono. My name is Daisuke Kawai, a research fellow at Japan Institute of International Affairs. So my question is about India. So as you mentioned, DFFT, Japan will be the chair of the G7. On the other hand, India will be also a chair of the G20. And presumably, India will be the most populous country in the world by 2030, having 1.5 billion populations. So that's why I think the cooperation with India regarding DFFT is very vital for both Japan and the United States. But India very much hesitates to proceeding with DFFT, particularly data-free flow. So is there any room or possibility to cooperate in regards to the DFFT with India? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, India is a big country in terms of population. And yes, I think it will be going over China in terms of population sooner or later. So it is very important to have India on board on discussion of DFFT because they have a G20 presidency. We'll probably invite them to participate in G7 digital ministers meeting, and we should be able to continue our discussion with DFFT with India. They are moving, their economy is, I understand, moving towards more liberal economy. They have certain regulation for their data for their own reasons, but they have developed their ID system, and I think in the middle of the COVID, the digital system is moving really fast forward. So we have a lot to learn from India as well. But in order to get their economy really going, I think data-free flow is also important for India, and they know that. So hopefully, we can hit the right balance so that we could put India on board. It's a good point.
Well, Mr. Kono, you've been generous with your time, and we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us here today. You have such a vital mission, both for Japan itself, as well as bridging the gaps in the G7 and beyond. So thank you. Again, please join me in a round of applause for Minister Kono.
Thank you.